What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. Today I've got a story time for you guys that, I've been wanting to tell for a while, but I just needed my friend's permission to. Basically, when my friend was in middle school, he created this, like, Mafia family type of thing, ended up making, like, $100,000 at 13, and for the large part got away with it, only got suspended for, like, a week. And I figured it would be good here on the channel, so I got his permission, and that's the story time we're gonna be talking about today. I know y'all are gonna enjoy it. Be sure to press the like button, otherwise you're gonna be the target of the Mafia in middle school. And without further ado, let's get into it. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. You would think that it's illegal. I'm getting quiet now. Lay low when you're rich, so I'm piping down. Making out, stack the bread, cause you love the sound. Just someone. Alright guys, so I think it's obvious that everybody likes to make some money, you know? And I had a friend in middle school who, for the most part, would act like he wasn't making money, but apparently was secretly making more than everybody. For some reason, it seems to be that the best ways to make a lot of money tend to be like bad choices, you know? And that's exactly what ended up happening here. I think money is like the cocaine of bad decisions. Like, sure, you know, you might make bad decisions still without it, but it just makes everything happen a little bit faster. Regardless, I did have a friend that had wanted to buy some stuff, and his parents told him if he wanted to buy anything, he had to get the money on himself. So he started looking for ways that he was able to make some money, and he was very, very good with computers, you know? He was one of these kids that would, like, make games for fun, or, like, I would go over to his house and he'd be coding stuff in his spare time. And I'm not a computer expert by any means. Like, I put mine together and I can play games on it and make a YouTube video, but this guy was leagues and leagues above me. Even a lot of what he ended up doing to make this money, I still don't understand, and I'm a 21-year-old. Like, this guy was pretty good with computers, so he started looking for something that he would think people would be willing to pay for. And he figured that the best way to make a lot of money that kids would be willing to pay for was like a way to make school easier. So he started looking through like this online portal thing for our school, looking for a way to, you know, sort assignments automatically or something he could sell to kids. And he accidentally found his way into an administrative grading account, like a teacher account. I still don't know how he did it. He explained to me like the technicality of it. I don't know, bro. It sounded like gibberish to me, but one way or another, he got the login and the password for one of these administrative accounts that could change anyone's grade in the school. And when he got into it, you know, most kids would have been dumb and immediately changed all their grades to A, which would have been suspicious. But this kid immediately realized that he had gotten into something that he wasn't supposed to be into, so he decided to lay low key. He didn't do anything right away because he didn't want to blow it just in case this was like something he could use to make some money. So he decided to go to some friends, get their permission, keep it low key, and just change their grade to see if the teachers would notice or if like a notification would go to the school just to see what would happen. And sure enough, dude, none of the teachers for the kids' grades he changed noticed. The principal didn't come over the intercom and say, "We know one of you is changing grades, stop it." So now after he did a couple test runs, he's like, okay, now I can sell this to people and change their grades. He decided that the best way to keep it low key and prevent teachers from finding out though was to like have an insanely high price, because the more people had to pay for it, the more likely they were to just keep their mouth shut about it, and it also would prevent like everybody in the school from doing it. Because if all of a sudden everyone at the school has a 4.0 GPA, it's really obvious that something fishy is going on. So I don't know how he decided that people would be willing to pay for this in middle school, but one way or another, he starts selling grade changes for $500. He would change all of your grades, and there were only a couple rich kids at the school that could like afford it and wanted it. But once they started getting it and he changed their grades and the teachers didn't notice and he started to get a good reputation, they went around and started telling all their friends. And people are always desperate for good grades. Like, yes, $500 is a crap ton of money, I'm not gonna lie, but there are people out there that are like, listen, my parents being off my back about my grades is perfect. And keep in mind, he had an administrative account for the entire school, so it wasn't even like it was just our grade, you know, he could do older kids, younger kids, anyone with money, he could change your grade. So when people are really desperate for a good product that has a good reputation, obviously he starts to sell it well. And it gets to the point where, you know, after a few months of doing it, he didn't go crazy and change 80 grades a day. He had done like 40 or 45 grade changes total. So obviously that's about $20,000 to like $22,000 that this kid had made at like the age of 12 for changing people's grades. And somehow, once he had done like 45 people at the school that he was at, he was like, all right, I probably shouldn't do anyone else at this school because it's gonna start to be obvious. grade averages are going to start to change. So he closes business at our school, even though he was making a ton of money. And he decides that he's going to start branching out into other schools. And like once he had done a bunch of kids at one school, he was going to keep moving. So that way it was unlikely that like people would notice. So he ends up getting in touch with like one of his friends at another school. And then together one weekend, they get into the administrative login for that school. I don't know how, like I said, but somehow they end up able to change the grades at a different school. And so his friend went to a different school and he becomes like a salesman there to sell these grade changes. But instead of calling him a salesman, this guy decides to refer to him as a boss and tells him that he can get employees in his family at his school to sell more grade changes. So yeah, obviously this means that they're making a little de facto mafia. And to be honest, I think at the time they were just trying to be silly, but it's pretty sick in retrospect now that you had all these like 12, 13-year-olds rolling around with thousands of dollars in their pocket at the school, calling each other a crime family. Anyways, the problem with this guy who helped him get into the system at the other school is he didn't have the same mentality as this guy. The original one definitely knew that he was sitting on a gold mine and the only way for them to get caught was for him to be an idiot and brag about it or start like flaunting all this money that was going to raise questions on where he was getting it. He understood that he had to lay low key. However, his partner didn't really understand that and was going around like telling basically anybody that would listen about how, oh yeah, dude, I can hack grades and like I'm changing all these people's grades, blah, 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 blah. Obviously the thing that you shouldn't do. If you've got a good situation and you know you could get in trouble for doing it and it's making you money, just keep your mouth shut. But this kid was going around his school telling everybody, and eventually somebody that he told was like, I'm gonna tell on you. And this is when things took a turn a little more seriously. So when he found out that someone was threatening to tell on them, he obviously didn't want to risk losing his money. So he told the kid, oh, I'm in charge of a mafia, and if you snitch on me, we're gonna hurt you. Which is really dumb because they weren't really in charge of a mafia. Like, there was nobody that was gonna show up to this kid's house and break his kneecaps. And obviously at that point, like the severity of it just went up a level. Hacking your school is already pretty bad. But when you start threatening people for it, you know, it just starts to get out of control. And then he decides to pay the kid some hush money too, just to like make sure he doesn't tell. And at that point, the kid who found out is like, all right, I won't tell. Obviously you threatened me and you paid me. I'll just keep my mouth shut. But at this point, even the original kid is like, okay, I need to eventually start to get an exit plan. The fact that people are starting to find out and threaten to tell on me and I have to like threaten them and pay them probably means that your little empire does not have much longer to run. And it's probably also a really bad idea to pretend to be in the mafia. I don't know, I've never tried to do it, but I feel like the real mafia might get a little upset that you're like role-playing as them. You know what I'm saying? However, at that point, they had done a bunch of kids at this second school, so they decide to add another school to the list and then another school. So now they're in the system for 4 schools, you know, they're making all this money. He has like 4 little mob bosses at each school that are in charge of selling the grade changes, getting him the money, all that stuff. And they keep it running for a couple months. And at that point, this kid's cut of like his money alone is well over $100,000. I think he told me that he ended up making like $105,000 off of this. He obviously got most of the money from the cut, but like his employees, the bosses would make a couple $1,000s. And he was like, damn, this is sick. And he was able to keep his mouth shut, but he started running into problems with like the bosses at the other schools bragging and telling everybody. Because when these kids were making a bunch of money, they were like, oh yeah, I'm awesome. Like, oh, I'm so cool. Look at me. And obviously that made people rub the wrong way. Nobody likes somebody that's constantly flexing the stuff that they have, dude. And just telling people that you get your money from doing something against the rules is begging for somebody to tell on you. And it gets so bad that they start like getting into fist fights at the school. And remember the original kid that the mafia had to pay off to keep his mouth shut and threatened? Well, I guess him and the boss at that school ended up getting into like a fist fight. And instead of the mob boss going to this kid and telling him so that way they could give him more money so that way he wouldn't tell, or they could threaten him again so that way he wouldn't tell, he was so embarrassed that he had gotten into a fight with this kid that he just decided to say nothing. And obviously, when the kid who had gotten into the fight didn't get contacted to get more hush money or threatened, he was like, screw you, dude, I'm gonna tell on you. So he decides to go to the teachers and tell. He doesn't tell on the threat or the hush money, obviously, because they would have taken away, but he does tell the school that, like, there's these people that are changing the grade books and da-da-da-da-da. And obviously, when this kid is explaining this to the deans, it sounds absolutely ridiculous, right? Like, imagine some kids sitting there. There's this secret hacker group of kids that's changing all these grades. It just sounds not realistic. So the deans are kind of like, oh, sure. They brush him off and assume that it's nothing, but they end up calling all the schools that the kid had mentioned just to let them know that they've had this report. And I guess somewhere in the school district was like a rule that they had to investigate any reports of like academic dishonesty. So the school had to look into it. It was just something that they had to do. So at the other school where the original hacker is, my friend who had run this entire operation, like the kingpin of this entire little scheme, he gets called into the dean's office at his school, and they basically ask him if he knew anything about a hacking system that was changing people's grades. And obviously my friend just denies. He thinks, he's like, oh, they have no proof. They're probably just asking because rumors have been swirling. So if I just say I have nothing to do with it and I don't know what they're talking about, they might believe me. He starts laughing, saying that he hates computers and couldn't hack anything if he tried. Like, he was really trying to convince these people that he had absolutely nothing to do with it. And he thinks he's getting away with it because the dean's kind of smiling him and listening to him, looking like he's having a good time. And then all of a sudden, the dean's smile disappears, and the smile is now met with like a very serious frown. And the dean starts yelling at him, "Are you sure you know nothing about a hacking? You know, like, I'm just wondering, are you sure?" And the kid just denies it to the dean's face, which is pretty ballsy, you know, when somebody basically says that they know what you're up to and you look them in the eyes and say no. It's impressive. Anyways, the dean is kind of like, huh, okay. And in his head, he's like, oh crap, now the dean is suspicious. He's a little onto it, but he manages to keep his calm for the rest of the time he's in the office. The dean, though, like, keeps kind of pressing him, getting him to break. Obviously, he's able to keep his cool. He just keeps denying it. And so the dean explains that somebody from another school had called and said he was involved and they were going to be looking into all the grades. So he might as well come clean now if he was involved. And he's scared, but he keeps his cool. And at that point, they let him leave the office because they can't get him to crack. And once he gets in the hallway and is on his way back to class, he's like, I'm screwed. I have to come up with a way to get away with this. Otherwise, they're going to, like, take all the money, you know? So he's trying to just on the fly come up with a way to make sure that he doesn't get in trouble. And at first, he was trying to think of a way to, like, keep the businesses running, like, keep changing people's grade without being caught. And very quickly, he realizes that, like, that's just not going to be a possibility. The odds of him being able to keep 200 kids in the school district's grade change when they were going to be looking for it was just slim to none. And he also knew that if they went through, like, the backlog of everything that had been done, that they would also see that, like, a bunch of grades were changed and then unchanged, you know? So he knew that if that happened, they were going to investigate it further and the money was going to get caught. So the only way to keep the money was to just shut it all down. And so his new plan is like, look, sadly, this business has been a great time, but I just can't do it anymore. So he goes back to his computer and he goes to all the grades that he's changed, and he changes them all back to what they were except his own. Like his grade, all the grades that he gave himself an A on, those stay an A. And he makes it very obvious that they've been changed. He doesn't even try to hide the tampering. That way, he gets caught and he looks guilty and they just stop looking, you know? Like, oh yeah, nothing else seems out of place currently, because he had just changed it all back. And if his just hadn't been changed, they'd assume he was just a dumb kid that hadn't thought it through and like got caught because he was just not smart enough. In reality, he was playing 5-dimensional checkers, all right, Queen Gambit's out here. But he knew if he admitted some guilt and got punished, the adults just wouldn't keep looking very hard because A, they just don't really like to do the work, and B, they would feel like, ha, yeah, that's right, we won. We got him to admit that he was guilty. So he does all this, and then he goes to like his mafia bosses that are working for him, and he tells them that, you know, he's gonna have to let him go, but he gives them the logins to their school. He's like, wait a couple weeks, just promise me that, but if you guys want to keep this going on your own and risk it, that's totally up to you. And obviously the mafia bosses weren't too upset, you know, because of him, they had made some good money. He said that they could do it in a couple weeks. They just had to lay low while like he got out of heat. And obviously, you know, that's a pretty good situation, so they weren't too pissed. And at that point, he starts just hiding all of the money, which was pretty easy, you know? It's not like he had to launder it. He was just hiding cash everywhere, like under his mattress, man, piggy bank, anywhere he could, dude, popping open bottles of like shaving cream, just stuffing cash in there. And then when his parents got home from work, he sat them down and like told them that he had changed his grade on a school computer, and crying, saying how guilty he felt and blah, 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 blah. And the parents had no clue that any of this is going on because, like I said, he wasn't spending the money or like flexing it. And they're shocked. They're like, oh my God, why would you do that? How did it happen? And so he's admitting that he did it to his parents, but he's like downplaying how he did it, you know, like, oh yeah, I just changed some grades on the computer. Like, he's not saying that he had some big business with multiple schools involved that was charging money. He just admits that his grade got changed, which is technically the truth. And his parents freak out and they call this school and snitch on him, man. Which I'm not gonna lie is kind of cold from your own parents, bro. Like, oh, you changed your grade? We have to call the school and tell on you. And the school was like not shocked because obviously they were suspicious, and they said that they were gonna handle it tomorrow at school. And that night his parents took away his Xbox for a month, and they said he was grounded until they saw fit. And he pretended to be really upset, and honestly he was like, in the grand scheme of things, if I get away with this, then that's nothing to pay the price for like getting away with everything I just did. And the next day comes and he just goes straight to the dean's office. Like, they tell him not even to bother going to class, just to go straight into the dean's office so this can get handled. And he walks in, and it's not only the dean, it's both deans, the principal, like the entire administration team is waiting there. And they're just like looking so annoyed with the fact that this kid exists. All right, guys, I'm gonna interrupt the video for just 1 second. On screen now is an Xbox gift card. I actually give away a gift card in every single upload I post here on the channel as a way to just say thank you to everyone subscribed with the notifications on. So if you're not a member of the notification squad, you might as well hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You got nothing to lose. You can always unsub if you don't like it. Pressing it is free, and I'm literally giving away money every time I post a video, so you got nothing to lose. Real talk though, I do really appreciate everyone subscribed with notifications on. And if you wouldn't mind slapping the like button if you're enjoying the videos so far, it does help me out. And yeah, on that note, I'll shut up and let you guys get back to the video. Anyways, they get into the office and like the dean starts role-playing a cop, you know, tell me what you know, like tell me everything, just taking it a little bit too seriously. Like, yes, it was a serious situation, but you know when a teacher is acting like they just discovered, you know, a murder or something, when it's like, dude, you just kind of caught me changing my grade. The only problem is this guy's trying to grill him, like get him to break and admit all this stuff, but he comes up with his excuse yesterday because he saw it worked on his parents. So he tells the dean, like, I felt so guilty about lying to you. You really made a massive impact on me. And deans love when you say that stuff, bro. They love feeling like, you know, that they're just the most useful person in your life. So the dean is kind of like, oh yeah, that's right, I did have an impact on your life, you know, kind of just gets schmoozed. And so they start asking him how he did it. And so he downplays it. He, like, instead of admitting that he got a login to multiple schools and somehow had gotten into the administrative accounts, what he says instead is that one day he had gone into a classroom and saw that a teacher's computer wasn't logged in, or logged out, sorry, you know, like the teacher's account was logged in, and he had taken a post-it note and written down the email, and when he was looking for the post-it notes, he happened to find the password and then changed his grades on the computer, and then, like, that was all he did. He did have the password, but he had found it on a post-it note, and he had just changed his grades because it was like a situation of opportunity. He just so happened to check the computer and had the ability to do it. And so he's kind of implying that, like, he got insanely lucky, you know, there was really no way that this could ever be repeated, and the deans want to believe that. It's a lot better to be like, yep, some kid got lucky, than admit that, you know, this system that the school's paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for is really easy to get into. And the dean is like, you know, we have to look into all the grades now, and if there's anything else, you're gonna get in trouble. And he's like, yeah, that's fine. He knew that if they went and looked and nothing looked out of place, they wouldn't do like a back check of a months ago just to see if anything had changed. They would just leave it alone. So he was like, yeah, go ahead. That's why he had gone ahead and changed everyone else's grades back. And he's sitting there and they're giving him the big spiel about how cheating is bad and academic dishonesty is the worst crime you could commit. commit and blah, blah, blah. The talk you get from your English teacher every year about plagiarism. And he's just kind of sitting there nodding, like waiting for his punishment to get handed down. And finally, the dean is like, we're gonna suspend you for a week due to academic dishonesty. Which, I'm gonna be honest though, is really not that bad of a punishment considering he made like $100,000. So his parents come pick him up, they're pissed, they're yelling at him in the car, saying how embarrassing it is, and da-da-da-da-da, and he's kind of like, yeah, you're right, it's terrible. On the inside though, he's happy as hell because it's over with now, and he ended up keeping the money. He keeps all the money in his closet, he never ended up going crazy, dude, but I will say, like, he bought his first car with it, he would take girls on these crazy dates, and all of us would always wonder how he did it, but he would always have a job, so like nobody really guessed anything about it, and I'm not gonna lie, he did kind of live like a king for a while. When I hit him up to ask, like, you know, how the story and the details and whatnot, because I remembered it, he even said that honestly, high school was a blast because he like always had way more money than he needed because of this little scheme. And hey, honestly, good for him, bro. Get your bag up. I wouldn't recommend like changing people's grades. That's a little bit far, but I can't hate somebody getting their bands, you know what I mean? A couple weeks later though, a few of the Mafia bosses at like one of the other schools decided to keep their little side of the scheme going, which definitely was not a good idea considering schools were now like on alert for grades getting changed. And obviously, because the entire situation came to light because these kids were kind of flexing the fact that they were involved in like a grade changing scheme, these people couldn't keep their mouth shut nearly as well, and obviously they made a classic criminal mistake, dude. He had ended up telling his middle school girlfriend, like one of the other mob bosses, all of the details of how this is going down. And obviously they ended up breaking up, dude, and so the girl went to the dean and told them everything because she literally had every detail because this guy couldn't keep his mouth shut. Never tell your girlfriend or your boyfriend stuff that like they could eventually use against you just in case you break up. And if you are gonna tell him that, then you really shouldn't cheat on him, bro. Like, he had cheated on this girl that he had admitted all of these crimes to. She had screenshots, everything. And that kid ended up getting expelled because they checked the grades and he had changed a bunch of people's. Like, he hadn't been being careful. He hadn't been doing it slowly. This dude was basically milking it forever. Lesson of the day is don't trust anyone with your bad ideas unless it's like your family. Because it's definitely not worth it if you get expelled, dude. Like, yeah, my friend got suspended for a week, lived like a king. That was kind of a W. This kid, though, ended up getting all of his money taken away when he got caught because they weren't stupid and could tell it was very organized. So he really did it for nothing. Like, homie got expelled. He didn't even get to enjoy the fruits of the labor. Massive L's on deck, but that's just really how it is sometimes. Crime doesn't pay unless you're an absolute genius, and like it or not, most of us are not. It's just the reality of it. If we're all smarter than average, then none of us are smarter than average. You know what I mean? Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I would really appreciate you taking a second to press the like button. Let me know in the comments section down below what you thought. I'm trying to do longer stories this year because I know you guys enjoy them, so if you appreciate it and you don't mind commenting down below just the word like long story if y'all like it like this, I would really like some feedback. And yeah, other than that, if you want more content, I do have a podcast called the Scuffed Cast. Link can be found down below in the description, along with a link to the intro song if you want to give it a listen. The Spotify link is found down below, but it's also available on Apple Music, Amazon Music, basically anywhere you play music you can find it. And last but certainly not least, if you're in the mood for merch, may I make a suggestion? Take a look at this haha merch and tell me it's not just the coolest thing you've ever seen. If you like it, that and many more options are available at the Teespring store, which is also down below. And yeah, on that note, guys, follow me on Instagram at Scrubby, Twitter at Scrubby_69. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.